Yo, so on Fox News, they just dropped a clip of Joe Rogan issuing a chilling warning about America. And listen, if you live in California, this isn't even shocking. We've been seeing this type of energy building up for years.
Leslie, I wanted to get your thoughts on something. Joe Rogan, right? He has a huge podcast, millions of followers and listeners. And as I argue, he has a subscription to Curiosity. He's not party affiliated, but he had this warning for the left where he talked about that these celebrations, these vile celebrations over Charlie Kirk's assassination might push America to the brink.
Then Lisa jumps in like, well, Joe is wrong. And then UC Berkeley looked like World War Z, but with nose rings during that TPUSA rally. So today, we gotta talk about this, because this wasn't a peaceful protest. This was people losing their whole minds over a Bible verse. Like, bruh, a Bible verse?
Let's watch.
Charlie Kirk gets shot and people are celebrating. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. You want people to die that you disagree with? Like, where are we right now on the scale of 1 to Civil War? Where are we? Are we at 7? Because I thought we were at 5. I thought we were like 4 or 5. But after the Charlie Kirk thing, I'm like, oh, we might be like 7. This might be like step 7 on the way to a bona fide Civil War.
See this? This is the part people try to act like they don't hear. When folks start celebrating violence, that's not activism. That's not holding people accountable. That's straight up Civil War energy. Now, I'm not sitting here with the helmet on predicting the country is going to split in half tomorrow. But when you have entire groups cheering for somebody to get stomped because they disagree, yeah, that's marinade. That's the slow cooker preheat. That's how it starts. And if you disagree, you go outside in Berkeley after 8 p.m. I'll wait.
Leslie, is he right?
No. And as a broadcaster, I think it's irresponsible to even put that out there. You know, we're a great nation, and one of the things that makes us great is that we can live together with all of our different ethnicities and cultures and religions and political ideologies. There aren't just two. It isn't just left and right, as we can see from primaries, right? There's left of left and there's right of right. I want to say something about this. I live in California. Harris, we have kids similar age. I just did the college tours with my kids. Went to UC Berkeley. It's one of the UC schools. Walk freely on campus. There's no security stopping me. You know, I'm going on campus. And the reason I say that, first, I want to say that violence, and I will repeat that violence is wrong. Violence for any reason is wrong. 2, people in this country have a First Amendment constitutional right to free speech, but not to incite violence. I don't think I agreed with anything Charlie said, but he had the right to say it. You should never, ever, ever say anything demeaning about somebody who has been assassinated, cut down in the prime of life. And in addition to that, you just don't speak ill of the dead. That's how I was raised. You don't speak ill of the dead.
Okay, Lisa, respectfully, you're allowed to disagree with Rogan. Cool. But don't gaslight the rest of us who saw the footage. UC Berkeley wasn't giving peaceful civic engagement. It was giving, my mom took my Xbox, so now I'm rioting. People were ripping down barricades, screaming at students, chasing folks, throwing stuff. That's not a civic disagreement. That's a meltdown with the student loan. And I grew up in California. If that was peaceful, then the 405 at rush hour is a meditation retreat.
You know, Turning Point has a right to have, their membership and to have their meetings. But I also want to point out that University of Berkeley has 46,000 students. And on my radio show, we had a man on the ground, the man on the street, go and talk to people. And it's amazing how many students didn't even know this was going on. They didn't even know. The campus is 98 acres. It's really huge. This was happening on one end of the campus. Also, if you look at all the footage, there are some older people that were there. I find it hard to believe they were students. So I just want to say I don't want the kids at UC Berkeley to all be demonized. I don't believe that everybody there was students. Again, violence is never right. It's never the answer, regardless of your political ideology. And every campus should welcome other opinions, like Liberty, let some atheists talk. UC Berkeley, let conservatives talk. I believe in that free speech, and I believe that's how we become more united and don't have a civil war.
It sounds similar to Columbia. In Columbia, they said a lot of these people weren't their students, but they were organized with the unsavory attitude.
What I was thinking
from
too,
outside,
right here in New York, yeah.
And that's what I wanted to focus on with you, Kaylee. So I grew up right by the campus. I went to Cal for a semester. And regardless if it's a tiny faction, the reality is that it happened and that we saw a violent attack. And then we saw, as Harmeet Dillon discussed, the essentially constructive suppression of free speech, which is unconstitutional and also criminal when you bring in bloody attacks at will. And we're not seeing that on every campus. So the reality is that there is whatever faction has defined it is alive and well, and it is frightening.
No, sir. See, this is the media dance right here. It was mostly peaceful. Fam, if your peaceful protest includes pushing, shoving, trying to flip tables, and screaming like someone unplugged your ring light, that's not peaceful. That's chaos with a syllabus. If I gotta run, it wasn't peaceful. If you broke something, it wasn't peaceful. If you made that one kid cry, definitely wasn't peaceful.
Yeah, and we cover stories like this endlessly. There's the violence we saw at UC Berkeley. There's the social studies teacher you played that said, "Bye, Charlie, what a piece of garbage. Look what happens." I mean, what an appalling thing to say. And this person is teaching students. That's not just one isolated example. We've seen examples like this across the country, and those folks belong nowhere near educating our children. And at UC Berkeley, if we could just pull back up those images, my favorite was the media. There were some in the media trying to tell us this was mostly peaceful. Wasn't mostly peaceful. There were fireworks, there was tear gas. You covered, is that peaceful? There was a bloodied face. No, that's not mostly peaceful. That was a real CNN moment for the media when they said, mostly peaceful protests as fire raged behind the reporter. That was in a different context in the summer of 2020. This was not mostly peaceful. This was very, very wrong. And what speech were they stifling? Not that it matters, because free speech doesn't characterize what you say. Everyone deserves free speech protections as long as you're not inciting violence. But the speech that they were objecting to was that of Frank Turek, who was one of the two speakers. Frank Turek, a pastor, he was one of the last people with Charlie on that day, stood on the stage and said, the Bible talks about the fact that testing produces patience, patience produces character, tribulation leads to hope, and it says all things work together for the good of those that love God. So that's the hateful speech to which they were protesting. I have Frank Turek joining me Saturday to talk about that moment as people tried to stop him from speaking and stop the people outside there. And I just want to end with Bill Maher. I never thought that I'd be someone who quotes Bill Maher frequently, but I want to because he has been very good on these issues. And he said this. He said that Charlie Kirk was shot under a banner that said, "Prove me wrong," because he was a debater. Too many people think that the way to prove you wrong is just to eliminate you. He said that is gross. And he says, I have no use for you if you say those things.
You see this part. This is where the whole crowd short-circuited. Frank quotes a Bible verse that literally every church in America reads every other Sunday. And suddenly it's violent rhetoric, a threat, a declaration of war. Bro, relax. It's scripture. It's not a contract on your head. It's not a hit list. It's literally Jesus warning people about the condition of their own hearts. But the fact that a Bible verse made them angrier than actual violence happening around them, that's when you know the culture is upside down. And look, Joe Rogan wasn't pulling this idea out of thin air. When you see people cheering for someone getting hurt over a political rally, that's not normal. When you see people feeling morally justified in violence because your opinion is dangerous, that's when ideology becomes militancy. And you don't get civil wars over policy. You get civil wars when people start believing hurting the other side makes them righteous. That's when it gets real. And look, as a Christian, I'm not here to add fuel to this fire. Jesus said these times would come. Division, chaos, anger, nations against nations. But he also told us be peacemakers in the middle of all this. But being a peacemaker does not mean being blind. It does not mean pretending madness is normal. You can love people and still tell the truth about the moment we're living in. So yeah, Joe Rogan might come off as dramatic to some people, but when you watch entire crowds lose their humanity over a political rally or a Bible verse, you start to see why he said what he said. So tell me, what do you think? Is Rogan tripping? Or are we too scared to admit things are getting worse? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and all that good stuff. This channel is going to stay real, stay funny, and stay honest, even when the world goes crazy. All right, let's get into the comments.